Hello, Internet. I'm going to start that over again. Hello, Internet. I'm Evan Dashevsky, features editor with PCMag.com. Welcome to the Convo. Okay, today's guest has done a lot of things. Perhaps all the things? You've done many things.
Most of the things.
Most of the things.
Yeah.
He's a comedian, author, social critic, futurist, public speaker, and tech writer. He was a producer in charge of original digital content for The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. He was director of digital at The Onion, and he wrote for the New York Times bestseller How to Be Black, wrote a tech column for Fast Company, and so much more. Yeah. So much stuff we're going to get into.
Yeah.
Baratunde Thurston, welcome to the Convo.
What's up, Evan? Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Now, for those of you at home, the show is called The Convo and not The Dialogue. So if you have any questions, ask them in the comments, and Social Pete will read them off throughout the show. If you're watching this after the fact or listening to the podcast and you still have a question for Baratunde, as always, too bad. Okay. So you consider yourself a futurist comedian. Now, those are two very nerdy terms you put together.
I'm a super nerd.
Okay, what does that mean? What does futurist comedian mean?
Well, I care a lot about the future, and I've been into tech for a long time. My mom was a computer programmer. I grew up with all the network things in my home.
Right.
And my comedy.
Maybe this?
We didn't have one of these. We had an Apple IIe, but I like the idea, like we should mandate a sort of retro day for tech where you just have to bang out your thoughts on this. Maybe we'd have less problems on the internet if everybody had to use an Atari 800 instead of streaming every last thought they had.
Right.
Slow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So futurist comedy means that I'm invested in the future, but I live now in the present always.
Yeah.
It's hard to live there or then.
Yeah.
And so I like to bring in topics of technology and innovation in the future into social commentary and into my jokeness. Yeah.
Would it be fair to call you a techno-optimist? And I've heard you do it's like TED Speaks and TED Talks and things like that.
TED Speaks, that's a new spinoff.
Yeah.
It's like the knockoff TED.
But you believe in like the power of the internet. Would that be a fair description?
Yeah, that is. That's pretty neutral.
Okay.
So I think that's
You mean it's like
fully
a
accurate.
neutral tool? Or?
Power isn't good or bad.
Right.
So yeah, I do believe in the power of the internet. I believe in the power of water as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay. But do you ever wonder if the internet is making people stupider?
Oh,
no. I have actually more to that question.
Yeah.
Okay, but you
I know. I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it.
Yeah, because like
there's
before,
no doubt.
I mean, I'll just give. I mean, we'll stay away, from any like say weird political things that may have died back in the 30s, but suddenly are coming back. But there are ideas like flat Earth.
Yeah.
Like there are grown-ups, celebrities, people who should know better, who are believing in flat Earth, and this is the internet's fault, is it not?
It is. It's always people's fault.
Okay.
But what the internet allows us to do is be worse
Right.
often. And the truth of it is that we can be better or we can be worse.
Right.
Some of the things the internet enables, it's so fast.
Yeah.
And actually someone commented on Twitter about this chat.
Yes, I saw that.
So
I didn't understand what they were talking
I'm going
about.
to quote that person.
Go for
They
it,
said essentially that the internet is faster and larger scale.
Yeah.
And that creates some of the challenge.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily good or bad, but when bad things happen, they happen really, really fast.
Yeah.
Misinformation can fly really fast.
Yeah.
Large, unproven products can be foisted upon millions of people really, really fast.
Yeah.
So humans haven't changed that much, but our context has changed because we're living in this networked world now. And that can lead to some really fun and really terrible consequences.
Definitely. Facebook, you have a question.
Will AI bring about the end of the world as we know it?
It already has.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I'm actually reading a great book by Rob Reed called After On. I highly recommend it. Disclosure, I'm a friend of the author, but that shouldn't discount it. You should just know. I feel like declaring my investments and friendship as an investment. Yeah. So he has written this near plausible future about AI. I've been thinking a lot about automation recently. And I think the Terminator scenario seems unlikely. The robots are still falling over. They can barely walk.
Yeah.
But there is an increasing encroachment of automated systems and artificial systems on our work and how we make money.
Yep.
And the speed with which these things are happening, we're not creating, we're unleashing a lot of these powerful tools with a very small set of people driving it.
Right.
And so we are designing tools. I said this actually in one of my talks a long time ago. People who never had friends are defining the word friend.
Right.
And that's weird. Like Facebook destroyed, we're on it right now. It's also not the internet, by the way. It's Facebook. It's a subset.
Yeah.
But you can't just declare like we're friends all of a sudden. No, we're friends. I just met you. We're not friends. And so when you unleash such significant waves on so many different parts, it does risk destroying some things. I don't think it's going to end humanity totally, but But I think we're going to have such a level of disruption that it will be a cause for serious concern, economically and culturally.
I mean, but do you still maintain optimism about these things?
I do.
Yes? Okay.
I do. I mean, and look, I think we have. I don't like being naysayer or doomsdayish because it's less fun.
Right.
I think having, I'm nearly 40. I'm a black person in America, and I've survived. I feel like that breeds a certain level of optimism. Like, I'm still here. I'm not at Rikers. There's a little victory in that. And I don't think anything is like preordained. I don't think a great book has already written exactly what's going to happen. There's a lot of great potential in technology and the internet. We can use AI and automated systems and to liberate us. We can get better deals on where we spend our money. We can have more responsive politicians. We can reduce levels of oppression in the world if that's what we choose to use it for. The trick is we're mostly using it for people to make more money.
Right.
And so the greatest potential really hasn't been realized, and in some cases, the worsts have in terms of mass surveillance and political oppression.
Facebook, you have a question?
Yeah.
What can we do about the fact that some white supremacists form their beliefs online?
That is a really great question, and I think part of how we have to address it is we have to name it for what it is. Domestic terrorism, white supremacy, radicalized ideology. We have a whole vocabulary when it's Muslims who are being radicalized online. Radical Islamic terror, ISIS. We have brands, we have names. There's been a whole marketing campaign on the order of like Coca-Cola and Pepsi to brand a certain type of horror and negativity and violence and ugliness. But when it's right here in our own country with people who look like our national leaders and the people on our money, we have a hard time calling it what it is. And so we tend to label it as lone wolves or a small subset or troubled people. And we start to make excuses for one group where another we have the zero tolerance policy. So I think an early step is to be honest with our language and call it terrorism, call it hate, call it violence, and call it online radicalization. And then I think another step is almost a pre-step. I think America has done a really good job, speaking of marketing, of sort of believing our own hype and not always being real about what our actual history is. And it doesn't mean we have to hate America, but it does mean we have to be honest about how we've gotten to where we are and the work that we haven't finished yet. So much of what's playing out right now, white supremacists are angry, basically at other white people who they lost against. They're angry about statues of Confederate leaders who were traitors, right? Let's use a real word. They were fought on the wrong side of a civil war and lost, but we never told that story. And you look at the way Germany plays this out, they never stop telling the story. And I'm not saying they don't have problems, but certain language, certain behavior is unacceptable. They have memorials to the Holocaust. We have no memorials to slavery or lynching in this country. And we're the progressive ones, and we're the smart ones, and we're number one. Yet we're number like 50 when it comes to reckoning with our own history. So the stew that some of the white supremacists are born out of, where you can find part of why you can get radicalized online, is that you had no counter narrative to push up against it. People were allowed to be a blank slate, believing that mostly everything was all good, a few bad things happened, I never personally did a bad thing, and now everybody's taking my job. It's like, wow, we gotta kind of rewind. We have to go back a little bit and be more honest about what's happened.
Well, let's also talk about not even extremism, but I'm about the same age as you.
Okay.
This is the most divided I've known this country to be. I know there's been wars, civil wars in the past, and other problems.
Yeah.
And I mean,
the 80s was the pads, and it was very
yeah.
like it was a tough time.
It was a tough time. Yeah. But you had the protection of your shoulders at least. No, but there's like it's just politically and racially and like all sorts of different groups.
Yeah.
Now, I actually think a lot of that has to do with the democratization of media. People have gone into their little bubbles and things like that, and I don't see it getting better. I don't see everyone coming out of their bubbles. Is there a solution there, or am I being too negative?
I don't think you're being too negative.
Okay.
I think you're being honest, and I think we are. Every major technological shift changes our culture, which changes our sense of who we are. When literacy used to be the privilege of a few monks, right? It was almost a handful of people who could read, and even a smaller set who could write. And air travel, access to a computer versus the internet. So beauty of the internet, everybody gets a voice. Horror of the internet, everybody gets a voice. And we all know some people who should be silent.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason why your theory was deemed crackpot, because it was crackpot.
Yeah.
But now we have enabled, through our tech, folks to feel this validation of some ideals that are not ideal.
Right.
And so what you're talking about, the bubbles and our ability to self-select, is a real problem. I also want to return to this idea of the commerce behind all this.
Yeah.
Because our internet is powered by money now. We were both on it before there were any gifts, and it's GIF, before there were any ads, right? When it was just text and ideas. But now we are all existing in some micro-targeted segment. We're all like on Facebook right now. Look into your own profile and see how many categories this company has put you in. It's way more ways than you think, because they want to be able to sell little pieces of us. And that same sort of business engine also creates an ideological engine where now we're only seeing other people who like the same shows we like, believe in the same politics we believe in, smell the same things we enjoy smelling. And there's a cost to that in a society as diverse as ours, that we can kind of push each other apart. So that's more diagnosis of the problem. Is there a solution, you asked? There are probably many.
Okay.
I don't have the silver bullet. If you're tuning in to find out how we heal the world instantly and make it a better place, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Send some hearts across the screen, by the way. I love that part of Facebook Live. But I do think that we can, we should pause. I have this internal motto, which is like click before you retweet. Like look at the thing you're sharing before you share it. And so to dive a little bit deeper into that, I think we should try to have as many face-to-face eye contact encounters as we can. I think a lot of what ends up in flame wars online wouldn't happen in a one-on-one exchange. Take it to private messaging. Take it to email. Take it to SMS. Like when we perform publicly online. We gather a crowd, an audience. It's like pumping up our chest in an after-school fight. Did you hear what he said about you? Oh, and now everybody's looking. And you're embarrassed if you don't stand tall and stand strong, and the internet can accelerate that tendency in us. So we try to put ourselves in a place where we're being as honest with ourselves as possible, which means not performing for a crowd that doesn't care about us. They want to see blood, right? It's the old Roman Colosseum.
Well, let's build a bridge. Can you name someone to say on the conservative or Republican side of things who, if you don't disagree with them, but perhaps you respect their intellect, a public intellectual of sorts?
That's a really good question. Evan McMullin is probably super high on the list. He ran for
president, right?
President, that's right. And I don't remember his vice presidential candidate's name. He's from the West.
Utah.
There you go. Thank you. I was like, I knew
he ran for president of Utah.
I know it's mountain time. It's a great nation, Utah. But he's got this new organization. So he was anti-Trump in his running, but very conservative on many other things. I respect him standing up. And I think all of us are capable of compromising on what we know to be right or wrong for the convenience of having our side win. And I won't pretend I've never done that. And I'm sure people I criticize on the right do it a little more. But Evan, I think, has really been a good moral leader in a time of great challenge, still standing up for what he believes in, but also standing up for what we should all believe in. He's really high on the list. He's been so public, and I think it's come probably at some cost because he's a public figure. Evan McMullin, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. Everybody check him out. Honestly, if there's one, I'll just give you one thing. I'm thinking of a few other names. I'm also thinking of a lot of disappointment. Anna Navarro is a pundit. She's a Republican. She's on CNN a lot. I like what she's been saying. And probably Schwarzenegger in a way, not in his personal life, because I think he's probably been a devastating human being. But in some of, when you look at what California was doing on climate, even as he was governor. Criminal justice less so, but climate for sure. I think that there's some good there. So no side has a monopoly on all the best ideas. And right now, one side does have a little bit of a monopoly on sort of caving in to bullying, which is disappointing to see. But that's why I recommend someone like Evan McMullin. So if you're a conservative, you don't like most of what I stand for, but you also don't want to feel like you're backing the school bully who's like picking on all the kids, Evan McMullin, that may be one of your people.
Cool. Let's also go back to the economics of the internet. Now, you're a creative fellow. It is a weird time because it's easier than ever, if you're a creative person, to get your stuff out there. Anybody from their phone could have everyone in the world read it in theory. or like a tweet like that. But it's harder than ever to get paid for the content. So it's just this weird dichotomy. I don't know. As someone who's managed to put a pretty successful career together, I don't know. What's your advice, I guess, for younger people who have ideas and things they want to do, but first of all, it's constantly changing.
Yes.
The rules today aren't going to apply in 3 years. I don't know. Do you have any advice for those sort of people?
First step, don't chase the short-term hack, the short-term gain. There, in the business side of this, there's this thing called growth hacking, which is like how to accelerate your user growth, and it's just really aggressive, almost stalkery behavior to get people to pay attention to you. In the media kind of landscape, it's clickbait and link bait. You're just being sensational for the sake of the short-term high. So just don't be, I don't want to use profanity on this. I don't know who's watching, but don't be a bad person. I'll put it that simply. Do things you would be proud of. I think there's making things. It's the simplest stuff. Like I started my comedy career in part because of the internet. I started with an email newsletter, then a blog, then a podcast. I started doing stand-up. And it was the parallel execution of many things and trying out so many different things until I found my own voice, my audience, my nemesis. You always got to find your nemesis. And a little bit of money. But what helped me get there was working with other people. So I say try a lot of things. Try with others. And there's someone who's roughly at your level who's doing the same things. Doesn't mean you have to start a company with them or a sketch team. But it might just be exchanging notes. Meet up once a week. Meeting costs nothing now with Skype and Google Hangouts and WhatsApp, etc. So having a community of fellow creative people to make you better and to give you leads, because then you have a community of folks who also might have your back. And if one of them gets an opportunity, they may invite you. Most of the early steps that led to the larger steps for where I am was from somebody else who was just as bad at comedy as I was. Putting me on their terrible show, but the next show was like a little bit better, et cetera, et cetera. So don't be a bad person. Try many things. Create, and don't just talk about creating. Just make stuff, write stuff, produce, publish
Don't
stuff.
afraid to suck.
Yeah.
It's actually like because you suck first, then you suck a little less each time.
And there are many things, most of the things I've made are bad. And the best stuff I've made, some of it has been seen. And some of that has led to compensation. But most of it's been unpaid. Most of it is not great. And I think there's also, if there's a last thing I can sort of improvise as a rule, remember that all the people you admire who look like they're doing great aren't necessarily. You're seeing them at their best. You're seeing them at their most polished. Like I just washed and combed my hair this morning. I don't always look this sexy. So remember that, especially in the internet, most people are projecting their own impression of their best self. You're not seeing them not pay their bills. You're not seeing their breakups. You're not seeing their family drama or their health challenges. And so we know all these things about ourselves. We don't necessarily know it about others. And so it creates this false sense of distance between someone who looks like they have it all and me way down here. And I guarantee you that person has, is, or will struggle as well. So we can be united in that truth.
I think it's become very clear from this interview, you're a huge Donald Trump fan. You think he's doing a great job. You're on the
he's
Trump
the
train
best president.
The best
MAGA,
president.
MAGA, MAGA.
Okay, now a while ago, he was getting yelled at for not being presidential enough. So then about a month ago, he tweeted out that he's modern presidential. I want to say he's not wrong. Now, I'll go a bit further and say that I think that it's weird that it's a septuagenarian billionaire, supposed billionaire, who kind of made this jump. But I feel like, especially as the millennials grow up to places of power or just grow up through the system, is that we're going to expect our politicians to be very transparent, to be available on Twitter, to kind of start beefs with people. And I don't think it's going back. I think he's kind of right. You're looking at me like I'm very wrong, but
I do.
Okay.
Because I want you to be wrong.
I know you want me to. I want to be wrong too.
I want to be very careful about extrapolating from Trump to a general rule of anything.
I don't think we're going back.
But I don't think he is in my mind and the minds of many people who want to raise their children to not be, sexual assaulting bullies, not a good example. I think he's lowered a bar. I don't think he's permanently done so. I do think he will have shifted our politics in significant ways. Barack Obama also shifted our politics in significant ways. I thought he, in some ways, raised the bar. but then we have someone who did the opposite.
Right.
So I think we have to be very careful about rules. People who were really disappointed with and disgusted with Bill Clinton got George W. Bush, a family man who had no hints of extramarital anything.
Right.
So say what you will about his politics, like there was very little doubt that he was like a mendacious, conniving, like personally disgusting person.
Right.
And you come out of that and you get a Barack Obama who's really different. And so all those last four men
Yeah.
are pretty different people.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any rule that because we have someone who can't control his Twitter hands at 3 a.m, that the next president
Yeah.
also has to do so. I don't think there's a rule that someone who can find it in his time to personally attack and target a beauty contestant for her obesity, but can't personally attack and target the KKK until bullet into it.
Yeah.
I don't think the next president has to behave the same way. And I don't want that to be the case, but I don't truly believe that will be. I think he's unlocked and unleashed something, and the gloves will be a little off, a little looser, but I think he is a unique personality who grew up in New York City tabloid culture, who was in real estate, which is a notoriously corrupt business that doesn't really care for people, that's full of backroom deals and bribes and all kinds of other dirt. And that's a singular kind of personality, and a reality TV star on top of all that. So I don't think we're going to get this alignment again. On the other hand, we might get a President Camacho from Idiocracy. And, you know, Brando would be great because he's got electrolytes.
I hope you're right. I think you're right in a lot of ways, but I just feel like the next generation of politicians are going to have to be socially like transparent and supposed real, like the opposite of what, say, Hillary Clinton was on social media.
And here's where I will, I accept your thesis.
Cory Booker.
To try to give this 45th president some credit. He changed the game. He pulled very few punches. I mean, he was in many ways a bully. Like Little Marco, Low Energy Jeb, like that's literally childish. It almost gives children a bad name. But there was a refreshingness to it, even for those of us disgusted by it, because it clearly wasn't managed. It clearly wasn't put through 5 layers of consultants. He clearly effectively tapped into real rage, real sense of disappointment, of unfairness, that the game's been rigged. And Bernie did this too. You had 2 70-something white dudes with white hair yelling. Like there is something that they have in common, which is a rawness. And I think if I was going to pull out part of what you're saying that I do agree with, is that we will, I think, look toward politicians who feel less managed, a little less polished, not necessarily as disgusting as this one, but as like more raw. Is something that, and that's because institutions, and I'll bring it back to the internet. So part of what the internet's done, and this is like exciting and terrifying, it just breaks every institution that we've ever held on to. Think of Napster in the music industry. The music industry had this vice grip on artists, on the price of CDs and records and sales, on us, the listeners, on radio stations. Now it's a free-for-all. SoundCloud's pumping out music, Mixcloud, Spotify. You can put more people listen to music on YouTube than on the radio, probably in some ways. And that's gone to banking, right? We have Bitcoin, we have Venmo, we have PayPal, we have Square Cash and Apple Pay, and all these people paid me a lot to mention their products, by the way. So the banks are threatened. Centralized politics is threatened. Trump was not supposed to be the Republican nominee. That party didn't want him. He came from the outside, in heavy part because of Reddit and 4chan and Twitter, a little bit of Instagram and Facebook, but without the internet, he would not be president. I am certain of that. So the internet has this ability to break apart incumbent institutions of any kind of concentrated power. And we're seeing politicians emerging from this new field. So the same way we're starting to find artists who don't come up through the major ranks, or banking products that aren't launched by Bank of America, we're going to see politicians who aren't launched by the Democratic Party, per se, or the Republican Party, at least the way we've known it. And there could be some real exciting and interesting and new types of people, not necessarily this extreme, but unique in ways that don't have all the credentials and check marks and degrees, but have a level of authenticity and genuine connection because they're coming out from a different version of the grassroots. And I think that's a reason for, at a minimum, open-mindedness, and at best, excitement.
Yeah. Facebook, you have a question.
Can you talk a little bit more about the message on your shirt?
Oh, yes. It says, close Rikers, build community. So we're taping this here in New York City, and Rikers Island is our jail. It holds about 10,000 people. It's a centralized jail facility. And I want to actually use this as an opportunity to explain what jail is, because it took me a few beats to get it. You think someone's in jail, they're a criminal. No, someone's in jail, they've been arrested. Mostly they're awaiting trial. So they actually haven't been judged. Many of them haven't been fully charged. They're just being held, waiting their arraignment. So prison's where you go post-conviction. Jail is like this in-between space, between judgment and actual truth, or as best we can obtain it, of what's happened. So Rikers is, if you Google it on your own, you'll find a lot of controversy about abuse of prisoners at Rikers, about the large number of under 18-year-olds at Rikers. It is a physically removed island, so people visiting their family members there have to spend sometimes 4, 6, 8 hours just to get into the facility, and then to get back out. If you're at Rikers and you're trying to get a court date, but you live in Staten Island, that's an 8-hour journey to get to your court date. So the movement to close Rikers is about more humane treatment. It's about saving time and money, and it's about putting jails next to the courthouses, which is the traditional way of doing things. New York has this sort of weird penal colony attitude where we put Rikers next to our other penal colony, which is LaGuardia Airport. So you have these two areas of mass abuse of people, both with the hand of the state involved in it. So I'm involved in the campaign. I'm trying to use my voice to help. And we have this another twist in New York, and I don't know how common it is in other places, but many of the people, in fact, most of the people who are in Rikers are there because they couldn't afford to pay bail. And so they're there because they're poor. And we shouldn't have a justice system where the more money you have, the more justice you get. But that's what we have, as in many other areas of our society.
Facebook, you have a question?
When is the next Comedy Hack Day in New York City?
Ooh, that's a deep cut.
Yeah.
Big fan of Cultivated Wit there. So after The Onion, I started this company with 2 of my colleagues called Cultivated Wit, and we merged computing with comedy, and we started putting on these hackathons where people build funny apps.
Okay.
And so one of the apps someone built is called Equitable, and it lets you split your bill when you're sharing dinner with friends, but it does so to close the wage gap between genders and among races.
Okay.
So you would pay more than me.
Okay.
And that was a bit of satire, but it's actually built on real math, and it was functioning. It's in the App Store. We don't have a date for the next Comedy Hack Day. Stay on the email list. You will be the first to find out, and that's at comedyhackday.org. Thanks for asking.
You write a lot about race, and you're as a futurist, do you think that it's possible in the future racism will go away, not because we progress, but because races go away? Because the fastest growing demographic is people of mixed races.
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
I think I like the simple math of that, but I don't think it works.
Okay.
One, as people, we'll find another word. It won't be race, but we'll end up with very similar divisions where a group justifies its oppression of another group or its superior access to resources based on some mythological superior intelligence or strength, something like that. So we've done it with Protestants and Catholics. We've done it with Hutus and Tutsis. We've done it with black and white and brown. We will. It's a feature and a bug of our species to be able to divide and conquer each other that way. But I also think, specific to the point of mixed race people, I don't think that's a solution. Right. I think just because we are able to individually love and reproduce across race lines doesn't mean that we're committed to systemically reducing a lot of the structural systems that make Rikers 90% black. Right. And that make a black person who smokes weed 5 times more likely to be arrested for that than a white person, even though both of those races enjoy the benefits of marijuana in equal proportion. Right. And I don't think just because you have a mixed race child, that means you're going to actively oppose a system that's already in place, because it's not just individual choices. In fact, it's mostly not. Racism isn't a bunch of individual people hating other individual people. It's a lot of us being born into a corrupt stew, just interpreting what we learned from our parents and from our society, and doing what feels normal, but when you zoom out, is highly imbalanced and unjust.
And also, I'm gonna give a shout out for the closed Rikers movement.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people, one of the solutions that they're looking at is they want to build like individual jails in each, or prisons, I guess, in each borough.
Yeah.
So it'd be easier for families to visit and things like that,
Yeah.
get to your court date. But a lot of the real estate and things like that didn't want jails in the neighborhood. I live in a town with a supermax prison, and I will say about 1,000 feet from that supermax prison, where there are terrorists and serial killers, there's $1 million condos because it has a beautiful view.
Yeah.
So it won't. That's just for people who are worried that like a prison or jail moving in the neighborhood it won't necessarily bring down your values. Just saying.
And we are all living next to or among criminals.
Yeah.
We're all lawbreakers.
Social Pete, for example.
Right? Social Pete is a serial criminal.
He's a dangerous
You
man.
should see what he's wearing.
Yeah,
it's a crime.
Yeah.
Love you, Pete. Yeah. But I will say, we all break laws all the time. Many of us are never pursued by the police for that. We're never arrested, we're never prosecuted, we're never sentenced. And so we just have to be real careful about criminals. Because if we were all honest about documenting the law breaking we do, we'd all be in jail.
Right.
So it's a roll of the die, a very rigged die, a very loaded die, about who gets to earn the label of criminal when we all commit crimes all the time.
Facebook, you have a question.
Who are your favorite comedians that the audience may not have heard of?
It's a good question. All right, I'll rewind. Bill Hicks. There's a great documentary about him. It's called American, the Bill Hicks story.
He was a hero of mine. Somewhat dated politically,
but not
great.
entirely.
Not entirely.
And he had a really beautiful view about how we unify, and he was very spiritual. And any American comic who's bigger in the United Kingdom than the U.S., you should listen to.
Yeah.
Because I think their palate can be a little more sophisticated. I would throw up a good friend of mine, Mike Kaplan, M-Y-Q, Kaplan. And he's got a special on Netflix. Hassan Minhaj, who I met because of working at The Daily Show, he's got a Netflix special. This is all a plug for Netflix.
Yeah.
Hassan, Minaj. He is incredible. He's a positive, enlightened, fun, young, and super smart comedian. So check out Hassan. And I still love I'm flipping. Maria Bamford. Phoebe Robinson. And she does a show with Jessica Williams called Two Dope Queens, which is a great podcast that also has stand-up. Yeah. That's a good way to discover other comics. Yeah. So I don't want to give you too long of a list. Check out the Hassan Minhaj special. That'd be number one. Check out Bill Hicks for some history. And listen to Two Dope Queens, which is like a gateway to other comics that you will eventually hear about, but you can hear about them first because Baratunde just told you.
Definitely. Now, we do a lightning round where we ask the same 10 questions to all our guests. But before we get to that, you said on your website you are a fan of snow, of the thing that falls from the sky in the wintertime. I want to offer a counter argument. I think snow is horrible and dumb. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm disappointed in your negativity.
Yes.
The heavens have blessed us
Yeah.
with a form of water
It's gross.
that floats,
Yes.
that tingles, that dampens the sounds around us, that paints the ugliest landscape pristine and beautiful, that allows for sledding, and most importantly, allows us to attack our enemies with snowball fights.
Right.
I think you're missing some of the best benefits and features of snow, and I'm just sorry that you aren't able to appreciate what nature has offered us.
I think it is gross, and I think it hurts, and it's terrible. I think we'll have to agree to disagree on that one. Okay, so let's get to this lightning round where we do, and if Pete, if you have any more questions, let me know. These are the same 10 questions we ask everyone, mostly short answers, but if you have longer answer, the floor is yours. Windows or Mac? Or Atari?
Atari 800.
Yeah.
Mac,
Mac,
but with a partition, throw Linux on the other partition so you still know how to use a computer.
Cool. Android or iOS?
Good Lord. iOS. Yeah, more secure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you recently come across a piece of technology that made you think, wow, I am living in the future?
That's a real good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a MIT Media Lab fellow.
You are a media fellow. That's
I was.
Yeah, yeah,
I served
Yeah.
my time and was honorably discharged from the Media Lab after 2 years. A chess grandmaster. And his name, Maurice. Black dude, bald head, named Maurice, chess grandmaster. There can only be one. He's like the Highlander of chess. He used some really advanced technology to run a chess tournament.
Yeah.
And it changed my way of thinking about how we run tournaments, how we play chess, how we bring people together. Look that up. It was like the ultimate chess challenge or something like that. It had $1 million purse. Check out Maurice Ashley, chess and like MIT. Look it up.
And actually, before we go on to the other questions, I just because we've had a few people from the MIT lab, and I'm kind of the media lab. I'm kind of fascinated. Like, how would you describe what it is? It doesn't really have a definition.
Yeah, it's a well-funded playground.
Yeah, for smart people.
For really smart people. So they, the Media Lab model is to take money mostly from companies and spin it into some general research, but things that companies could also use. So they invented the children's programming language Scratch at the Media Lab, which if you have kids, you should let them play with it. It gets them the principles of programming. They are working with holograms. They're working with 3D printing. They are doing things with fabrics that are like smart fabrics and changing how fashion happens. There's a lot of really cool, sometimes really weird and esoteric and not commercially viable stuff. But if you want a glimpse of what might be, that's a good place to look. And the guy who's the director there, Joy Ito, one, never graduated college, yet runs the MIT Media Lab. So just like +1 for maybe not having to have a college degree, or certainly not, it's not being necessary for everybody's success. So check out media.mit.edu and see what they're up to. It's almost certainly something you'd find interesting if you're watching this.
Well, and actually another follow-up question. You went to Harvard, right?
Yes.
Okay, do you think college is still, as it exists today, still necessary?
I think it depends on who you are.
And what you want to do.
I think if you, again, I have to bring it back to race because that's the untold story of the land that we're in. But I think it's much more important, depending on the class you're coming out of and the race you're coming out of. Because earning power, we have an earning differential based on race. So me having a college degree, really helpful. Same brain, but with an extra piece of paper, that's going to boost my pay and get it something closer to fair based on what I'm actually able to do. That said, the debt that comes with college, the amount of time and given the skills that we need to build to be economically viable and have a sense of purpose, I think there's a huge, I talked about how the internet's changed banking and music. It's changing education too. And like I learned how to tie a Windsor knot from YouTube. I learned how to pack my super dope Go Ruck backpack from YouTube. And I'm learning some language skills and all from the internet. So a lot of practical knowledge is coming from not a university setting. And certainly coming at far less expense. So how much is your life? Like if you're living in New York, okay, that's a higher bar, but not everybody needs to live here. Please don't come here. It's too crowded already. And what community you want to be a part of, and how much money do you need to be making? And are you going to college so that you can increase your earning potential? Or are you going for community and experience, discovery, find yourself, intellectual pursuit? What we think of as college and the requirement now is definitely going to change. So I have no blanket rule. Depends on who you are and what you want to be when you grow up. And who you want to be when you grow up.
Back to the lightning round. When you were waiting in line at the store, what is the first app you opened to pass the time?
Probably the New York Times app.
Okay.
I try not to make it the Twitter app.
Yeah.
But it's probably the Twitter app, honestly, before the New. I wanted to come across as smart. So I'm like, this is the New York Times app. It's the Twitter app. It's the gutter app.
That's where I found out all big events that happen. I find through my Twitter app. These days.
For a while, I was playing with this app called How Many Rocks Are There, which is an app that came out of Comedy Hack Day. And it allows you to ask the question, how many rocks are there in the world, and then count them. So you take a picture of a rock and you add it to the rock database. And so the more people who add rocks, the more we know how many rocks there are. So I'd recommend that one. And there's also Binky, which is in the App Store. It came out of Comedy Hack Day. And it's just an app. It's like Instagram mixed with Facebook with absolutely no purpose whatsoever. Like there's no actual people in it, but you can bink and re-bink. And you can look at random pictures, you can type comments, but it just auto-types them for you as you press buttons. So you get the feeling that you get from Instagram without the social obligation or risk. Or privacy violations.
Ed Snowden, traitor or hero?
Oh, Lord, hero.
Hero, okay.
Man, Thank you. Like, if ever someone's watching this,
Yeah, he's definitely watching this. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I think a lot happens.
Yeah.
We are the panopticon that we fear.
Yeah.
Like, we are the 1984 that Orwell wrote about, and we're building it ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we've empowered all these corporate entities, and they have relationships with the government, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not. But I think he bent the course of history a bit, and maybe he just delayed the inevitable and bought us some time, or maybe he really helped shift how we think about who owns data, who has the right to know all these things about us. I know it was lightning, but I thought a lot about this guy.
This is your time.
And I was initially like kind of annoyed.
Yeah.
I'm like, why'd you go to Russia, dude?
Yeah.
He didn't. Like, he got stuck there.
Yeah.
And I've seen him talk. I've read a lot. I've seen the arguments and the counter arguments. I don't think what was happening was legal. I don't think there was another way to air that illegality without someone whistleblowing, without someone snitching, and I'm so glad that he did that.
It's so interesting because I asked that to everyone. Most people mitigate and kind of wishy-washy in the center.
Yeah.
You're the second person who's like you and Blossom and Maya Bialik, hero.
Yeah.
And then we've had a few people who are like, definitely villain. But yeah, it's interesting that's kind of like a reflection of like of how you see the world.
Yeah. Because I believe in people.
Yeah. Speaking of a world without people, will the singularity occur in 2054?
No, it will not. I think Ray Kurzweil's crazy.
Oh, crazy. Okay.
I do not believe in like nanodust taking over the universe and we all merge with rocks that we've counted in our How Many Rocks Are There app and just spread intelligence throughout the universe.
Yep.
I think he's mad. I think he hears some brilliant things about him, but I think that specific vision of the future is false.
Okay.
I do think that we are creating, as we talked about earlier, I don't want to repeat too much, but there will be unforeseen consequences, amazing benefits, and the way our society looks in 2054 will be almost nothing like the way it looks today. Of that I am confident. What we think of as a government, as a community, as our own powers and how we interface with each other and with machines, and our ability to differentiate between a machine other and a human other will approach zero. And so we're going to have chatbot friends or some version of it that renders human enough. But I don't think his specific cultish singularity, like I'm a rock now.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a rock.
Is there intelligent life out there in the universe?
Ooh. There has been.
Okay.
And
Do you
given
know something?
I know a lot of things.
Okay.
I am reasonably confident that we are not the only intelligent civilization that ever was. Because of the way space and time work and because of the vast distances and the vast amount of time it takes to travel them, I'm not willing to say that simultaneous to our existence right now, there is another technologically advanced civilization on par within range of us at this moment. But I think there has been / there will be in some grand sense of the universe, and where that is, and if it's a parallel universe, I don't know. I like Interstellar.
Sure.
Plug for Interstellar.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's all I'm allowed to say.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I signed a lot of documents.
You'll tell us the rest after the cameras are off. Is Bigfoot out there?
No.
Okay. Everyone's yeah.
There's so many. I wish you guys could see the rest of the room. There's so many. Everybody's head just. Oh.
Yeah. We want there to be Bigfoot out there. What is your go-to drink at the bar?
Old fashioned.
Oh, that's a good one.
A rye old fashioned
Yeah.
with a 1 block of ice, not the shredded ice nonsense.
big ice.
A thin peel of the orange, not a chunk, not a wedge.
Yeah.
And it's super simple. It's just like 2 ounces of rye, a little sugar, stir it, spritz the orange, and then of course the bitters.
Yeah.
Simple, classic. It's my test drink.
Okay.
If I go to a bar and I order that,
Yeah.
I'll know if it's worth going back to that bar and ordering anything else.
We're in the golden age of television. What are you watching these days?
Oh, I hate this. I hate that there's so much good TV.
There is so much good TV.
I actively avoid
That's why we want to help people.
learning new things.
Yeah.
Because when a friend says, "Oh, this is a great show," I'm like, "Damn it!
Yeah.
What? Are you sure it's great?
Yeah.
Or is it just good? Because I'm full up on good.
Yeah.
Great is I'm gonna have to bump something.
Yeah.
So right now I'm watching Game of Thrones.
Sure.
Turn. That's a less popular one. It's on AMC. It's about George Washington's spy network. Queen Sugar.
What's that?
That is a show by Ava DuVernay. She did Selma, She directed the movie Selma, and it is set largely in Louisiana, and it's about black farmers.
Okay.
And it's interesting
Which channel is
and
this on?
sexy. It is on OWN or Stars. I get it digitally, legitimately, but I just don't. I don't know what network everything is on. So it mixes like celebrity culture and black people and land. Like you never hear about black farmers. There used to be so many, and they have this generational concept too. I think for me, obviously, as someone who's black, I care a lot about legacy and lineage, and a lot of us don't have access to that because of this mysterious event that happened a few hundred years ago that shook up the family tree. So this show kind of addresses that in a way that's very dramatic and sometimes funny, but it's a great drama. Doing a House of Cards thing. And you know what? I'll put The Magicians.
Okay, what is that?
That's a Netflix series.
Okay.
And it's like grown-up Harry Potter.
Okay.
It's like Harry Potter with sex and cursing. Do it.
Yeah.
And by it, I mean sex and cursing.
Fuck yeah. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know we could curse.
Oh, yeah. You're allowed to have 3 curse words per show. I don't think you've used up any
I've
of them.
used none.
Yeah,
My
do you want to go for it?
You know what? I'm going to save it. Because maybe if I come back, I'll do 6.
All right. You like that? That's it, Baratunde Thurston. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. For those of you at home, give us a like, give us a share. We appreciate those. Check out some of our past interviews. We've done lots of these. The Convo is an audio podcast available at all the audio podcast places.
We're an audio podcast too?
Yes, but not live, but we'll be there maybe next
I would have
weekish.
totally had a different persona if I'd known people were going to be watching.
Do you want to do a funny voice or something for the podcast listeners?
I'll just add some effects for my Atari 800.
Yeah. Now, does that get picked up by the mic or not? We don't know.
Sorry, I totally ruined your clothes.
Oh, yeah, no. Okay. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to Social Pete. Thanks to producer Weston.
And Social Pete's dressed just fine. I'm so sorry. That was mean.
He is immaculate.
It was very Trumpy of me to do what I did to him.
It was,
but I apologize.
He was being sarcastic because he's so immaculately dressed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you to photographer Jose today. Thank you to Sheila, who's there in the Peanuts. Hi. And as always, be good to each other.
Yeah.
Peace.